Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. This is a call to all Lavantillians. And what do I mean by Lavantillians? Of course, your host, we just finished, of course, the ground report, and I thought I should, of course, at least to make people out of an abundance of caution and in preparation for the inevitable, the transformation of Lavantil, the paradigm shift that is required, the attitudinal change that is of necessity, and the fact that the stigmatization to which all of us as Lavantillians have experienced, whether you believe that you have accomplished what you would like to accomplish, or whether you believe that or you are in a position that your economic and social conditions have changed for the as we know it and as we have grown up in. And I understand whether you call it brain drain, whether you call it gravitating to greener pastures and therefore pursuing one's ambition. I understand that. And therefore, of course, there are some things that you have to sacrifice, like, for example, where you came from. But I want to tell those who have accomplished their goals, whether it's social, economic, cultural, economic, and of course, you're living a quality life that you otherwise would not have achieved if you had remained in Lavantil. I want to say Lavantil remains the same, if not has deteriorated. Why? Well, there are several reasons. I'm not going to go into it. This is an introduction and a call really for all Lavantillians. Whether you're from East Port of Spain, whether you're from Lavantil on the hill, whether it's Lavantil on the flats, as we would say, or on the Eastern Main Road, or whether you are from Beetham, Steelats, whether you're from Mova, whether you're from Malik, or whether you are from, of course, places like Caledonia, Africa, Chumakak, Low Place, and all of those communities in between, including, of course, St. Joseph Road, Junjun, yes, Picton, yes, and indeed, whether you want to, of course, see yourselves as one who is separated and apart because of your achievements and where you are at this point in time. Well, the people of St. Barb's and environs are still there wallowing in the misery, the decadence, the inauspicious conditions, physical and otherwise. And those of us who have a commitment and who have certain qualities and capacities, whether it be financial or whether it be academic or whether it be skills, vocational, or whether indeed you have gravitated to the business sector in the society. All of us, having of course buried our navel strings there, have a duty and responsibility. And therefore, Lavantil for Lavantillians must be the order of the day as we seek to transform. There is, therefore, as you will see on your screen, a political vehicle which we must now embark upon, having regard to the fact that for decades we have given others that ultimate responsibility at the level of the politics, at the level, therefore, of high decision making, or the highest decision making in these communities. And while we would have, of course, given up that for others, in this case, of course, is the PNM, because they remain dominant there. We vote for them decades after decades, year after year, 5 years after 5 years. The fact of the matter is that they have poorly performed. We have to come to grips with that. And while, of course, there are those who, among us, seeing the problem of our young people in particular, and decided to do something about it, as Bishop Burke, for example, with her children's home, using her own home to accommodate that, which of course is responsibility of the state and maybe the immediate community. But this individual took the gauntlet and take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and just as well has been, of course, people like Gad Christopher, people like Lystra Penny, people like Ronald Timothy, and there's so many others. Some have gone, and some are still here in the departed who was living right on Picton. Not rich people like myself, but we have and had a love for the Laventille community, having a vision that it can be transformed and that it could take its place in the society, which of course suggests that we develop a quality of living and standard of living that is equal to those communities, let's say, west of Port of Spain, whether it must Westmoreland, whether of course is St. James and Woodbrook to a lesser degree, or those east of the general geography of which I speak, such as St. Anne's. But the fact of the matter is that we have a problem. And too often that problem is nestled, of course, in crime, violence, and of course reflected in the, or consequential, concomitant with poor performance in schools. And of course, deteriorating commercial activities from within that will create, of course, an easier and more convenient business class. But that has not been happening. The persons who, of course, committed themselves to doing a little business by opening a shop, a restaurant, a bar, they will tell you, you just have to walk through. You will know of the many that were there, and today, of course, not even the delivery trucks want to come up on the hill, or indeed in other parts of the constituencies that comprise, of course, East Port of Spain, Laventille West, and Laventille East movement. How could we, as sane, reasonable, committed people, see that level of deterioration, see that level of collapse, and remain complacent and say that somebody else will do it? Well, yes, we have relied on somebody else. That somebody else would have been the PNM and all of its various iterations, dimensions, and of course those who would have over the years achieved the objective of constituency and local government representatives, and alas, have failed us. It behoves on us, therefore, to take up the gauntlet, take up the challenge and say, but at the national level, that we must take charge. It is as a consequence of that the Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment was formed and founded. Yes, people. and is a registered political organization dedicated only to the Laventils and, of course, East Port-of-Spain, because, of course, we see East Port-of-Spain, though it falls, of course, in the constituency of Port-of-Spain South, to have the same socio-economic and psycho-cultural and other experiences that are considered to be parallel to each other, and therefore it would not be demarcation from East Port-of-Spain to the other parts of the Laventils. And so we thought that East Port-of-Spain must also be included, even though it falls in a constituency called Port-of-Spain South. And I want to say this as well, that has been so when one looks at the fact that Port-of-Spain houses the capital city and the borough of Port-of-Spain, which of course is the main thoroughfare for commerce, for businesses, commerce, yes, and for, of course, government departments and ministries. It is, after all, the capital city. And so we believe that the next phase of the political process must be the capturing of the Port of Spain Corporation. So the proximity of the Port of Spain South and the socio-economic circumstances of that general area of which I spoke earlier. We believe that taking charge of the corporation will also benefit the entire area as we seek to ameliorate, to improve. And PNM in office, that they then pursue a course of action that is, to use a more complex term, gentrification, which really is about emptying certain parts of Port of Spain where families would have lived for decades, and of course their connection to each other and that of the Port of Spain area, and in a sort of what I consider to be dual urban environment. I said dual urban simply because one part of East Port of Spain will be actually part of Port of Spain. But then as you go further east, you will get into, of course, parts of Laventil, going over to Mova, that, and Malik, of course, that will not be so considered, or it's up for its, as far as its appellation is concerned, or its naming is concerned. But of course, the overall conditions are the same. The experiences are the same. Unemployment, violence, truancy, limited performance in the education system, low percentage of businessmen and women, general, of course, feeling of second class and third class, and then the stigmatization from without, from outside, quite apart from international advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, which specifically names Laventil as a place not to go, as they warn their residents and or investors, if they are coming to Trinidad, don't go there. That in itself places us at a tremendous disadvantage. But I want to say with alacrity as well, that it gives us an advantage as well if we are able to respond to those issues that has placed the stigmatization of the area into the minds of those influential elements, by we ourselves recognizing that it is upon us that the amelioration, the relief, the salvation, the liberation of the community rests. And therefore, the question of development by the people, of the people, and for the people is critical, because nobody else will do it. The church groups that are outside will not. Those who are inside would make their contribution. The leaders that have emerged over the years, that have either left or they are from outside watching in, will not, with the longest rod, touch or engage Laventille. The law enforcement agencies will also include, of course, the army and the other arms of national security, whether it be fire service, whether it be the prison, etc. They have a special attitude to the institutions. Yes, they are institutions of social control, I agree. Just as the families, just as the schools, just as the churches. But the fact of the matter is that more has to be done, because the situation is deteriorated. Our infrastructure as a community-wise, the PNM loves to boast that it is better than, let's say, places that we consider to be rural. But the fact of the matter is that as an urban community, as a suburban community, we have and possess infrastructure that is in critical need of upgrading. What do? Our housing stock rapidly deteriorating. There are pockets, of course, of improvements, but that is far from what is now required. There are still Latians, for example, just above the Greens on Piccadilly Street, and therefore above the eastern entrance of Port of Spain. What do? So people, in this short video, I'm merely saying, get ready. All the graduates of MLIO, we will be calling on you, the numbers to contact me. I will be dealing with. I want to tell you that if you can assist, because we have to fund this thing ourselves. And of course, there is no shortage of ideas, but all idea is important, all of them. And so, apart from the ideas, we must be able, of course, to put our shoulders to the wheel. We have just acquired a building on George Street that has to be upgraded to meet the requirements for the campaign. We have to, of course, have certain infrastructural, or put out another way, superstructural issues. Setting up an office, setting up a campaign center. For the moment, all must come on board. Graduates, all Laventillians, as far as we're concerned, we have no registration as such. All Laventillians, as far as we are concerned, are members of LOVE, Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment, the political vehicle that has to, of course, chart our way forward, simply because it is now an imperative. It is out of necessity. And it is said that necessity is the mother of invention. Well, the creation in that vein, the creation of the Laventille Technology and Continuing Education Center in that vein. And of course, the East Port of Spain Development Corporation, was also in that vein. And so what we hope is that a coming together, an amalgamation of all these various institutions to impact positively and to generate the transformation that is required as we fight for our young people to stay in school. But not just to stay in school, but to also, of course, perform well. We have to give them the skills that are required. And more importantly, to have them remain in the area to make their contribution beyond the academic and, of course, other what I consider to be lifetime achievements or otherwise. So until we meet again, a pleasant good morning to all and sundry, and a pleasant good day, and see you tonight